Let's segue over to this next story, which
victory.
may be a contributing factor in an upcoming civil war here in these United States. From Timcast.com, Idaho passes bill banning abortions after 6 weeks. Idaho's Senate Bill 1309 is modeled after similar Texas legislation passed last year. The bill now goes to Governor Brad Little to be signed into law. Little has supported similar abortion bans, but has not yet offered public comment on this bill. The abortion bill does include exceptions for circumstances such as rape, incest, and medical emergencies. The current abortion laws in Idaho authorize abortions until the fetus is viable outside the womb, typically around 24 weeks. If the governor signs the bill, the new Idaho abortion ban could take effect as early as April. So we're seeing similar laws. They mention over at Timcast in Mississippi. There's Texas, and they say at least 12 states have introduced bills modeled after the Texas abortion ban. The Texas Law Senate Bill 8 empowers private citizens to sue anyone who helps facilitate an abortion after the legal limit. This is a big story because 6 weeks, I think, is, in terms of what we've seen across the country, the shortest amount of time so far, I believe, right? Because like 11 weeks was Mississippi, and they got sued over that. Now it's 6 weeks. A lot of people, even people on the left, believe that Roe v. Wade will be overturned come June. So this is just another shot across the bow. Maybe it's not even the right way to put it. I mean, this is another law. Leftists, abortion activists are going to go after this absolutely, but it may be meaningless if come June they issue a ruling overturning Roe v. Wade.
Mm-hmm. Well, and of course, they will not be able to stand the fact that unborn children are not being murdered in your state, even if that continues to be legal in their state.
Well, I think there's sort of a defensive mechanism here as far as I think one of the big issues in our country is when people move from California or New York to Texas, because of Texas's success, it actually leads to failure. And so by doing something like this, it's actually not even about abortion. What it's saying is there's people in Seattle and Washington State and Oregon right over the state line, I believe, of Idaho, who are moving into Idaho. It's saying stay out. And it's necessary to do that because otherwise Idaho will become Portland in however many decades.
Well,
Very interesting.
But I hear what you're saying, but think about the implication there. Do you believe that there are women who are scared that if they go to Idaho, they won't be able to get abortions? Like, it's just kind of a crazy thought to me that there's a woman who's like, but what if I get pregnant and I can't terminate the pregnancy in this state? You know what I mean?
So you're suggesting if a woman wanted an abortion and she was an Idaho resident, she would just cross the state line to get it?
Well, not necessarily. What I mean is, like, the implication is effectively, if this is true, that this bill is a warning to these people, the only reason they'd be scared is because they plan on having an abortion sometime.
No, because they're obsessed with virtue signaling. I mean, look at all the boycotts they do of Florida and Texas for all kinds of bills that really won't affect almost anyone. It's just a symbolic gesture that you're not going to fit in here.
It's amazing how they lie too. Like I can't get over the Florida parental rights bill, which they keep lying about
constantly.
Yeah.
Well, and with this, I'm not sure why they decided to do it. I want to just ascribe the best possible motivation to them and say they're really trying to save unborn children, and really God bless them for doing this. But I do think it could have this very interesting side effect you bring up if you were left-wing people being willing to move to these states. But that said, on the other hand, you're mentioning virtue signaling here, and an important part of that concept is it's completely hollow and meaningless. So I think there could be reason to believe that these left-wingers still might end up moving to these places just because all they know how to do is engage in hollow symbolic virtue signaling, and their actions never map onto this, the things they say they want.
So I deal with this when we've been looking at property in West Virginia, more so in the past year. But now that we have the new property, hasn't really come up. But one of the issues is we hear a lot from locals that there will be maybe a pig farm or a shooting range, and then these DC people who are trying to escape the cities over COVID and other problems that they create move out here. When they go to buy the property, they're told, now you have to sign these documents saying you acknowledge there's a shooting range and a pig farm nearby, and it's going to stink and be loud. And they go, oh yeah, of course. But what happens then when 10 more people move in all around the pig farm and shooting range? Mm-hmm. Now there's more of them than you. And they say, okay, we did agree to that, but now we're going to have a vote. Oh, look at that. We've all voted to get rid of your property, and now you're gone.
Yep.
So that's one of the things we see. So I'm not entirely convinced the leftists will be like, oh no, we better stay out. They're going to move in and go, wait, I can't do what? And then eventually enough move in and then say, vote and get rid of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you're saying though about it. It's sort of a prelude to a civil war, or some sort of national separation. Is the 50 states increasingly states going far left and far right, and so there's a differentiation within the country, even if nominally we're still one, because people are very mobile now, especially after coronavirus. A lot of people working from home. I think we're going to see people self-segregating politically.
Absolutely, yeah. So that was the point I was bringing up initially. Is that I think abortion could be a great moral cause for the left or the right, which could be, on par with slavery. Of course, the left will probably scream at me for saying something like that, like what? Or maybe they'll agree.
No, they'll agree because they say it is literal slavery for a woman to not be able to murder her unborn child.
Right.
I've heard that argument.
It's like the moral issue may be on par with that. Denying a woman her right, they could say, what did George Carlin call it? Being a broodmare for the state. If that's the left's perspective on bearing a child when they decide not to or they don't want to, then they probably would agree it's a great moral cause on par with slavery. But if that's the case, and there's literally no middle ground. There's zero middle ground. It's just there's no. So how do you resolve something like that? If they overturn Roe v. Wade, I think you're going to see a bunch of states to start banning it, and then I wonder. Will you see leftists setting up makeshift underground abortion clinic railroad or things like that?
For sure.
You think so?
Oh, yeah. Abortion, since the dawn of humanity, has been part of us species. I can't imagine it ever stopping.
So I'm sure that some people will still attempt to have abortions, but I believe that it will be greatly decreasing in number in the places where it's illegal. But I think what Tim's asking is not necessarily will there be people who break this law, but are left-wingers going to try to set up an entire underground infrastructure to continue abortion?
To get a girl out of the state without people knowing.
Yeah,
I
something like
would
that.
imagine, yeah.
Because if you think about it, if someone lives in a state that allows it, and they don't want to get one, they don't do anything. They just say, I'm not going to get one.
So another reason why I do genuinely believe that abortion bans work is because, this was a while ago, and I can't remember the exact state, but Planned Parenthood tweeted something out. I don't think it was the Texas law, because that was too recent, but they basically tweeted a frowny face about how in certain areas where abortion was more difficult to access, the birth rate had increased.
Oh no!
I have to find this.
How terrible.
It's actually ridiculous.
What a
I'll see if I can pull this up, but. People also, the law is a teacher, and B, if abortion bans didn't decrease the prevalence of abortion, the left wouldn't be upset by them.
That's a good point. And one that's very relevant, because I think that they're afraid of actually changing the thinking about abortion and about things like parenthood. And I think that very much goes back to feminism and telling women that they have to get rid of this unwanted child if it unfortunately happens to them. We don't know how this happens, but children happen. They just have to get rid of them somehow, and they just fall flat because they're like, well, if you wanted to stay at home and be a mother, you would just have a kid and you couldn't abort them, and then you could be a worker. And I think that also gets back to communism, but that's very circuitous.
And I think there's a sort of a pattern emerging of the Democrats becoming the party that hates children, with closing down schools for 2 years because of their deference to the teachers union, which is a vicious and ruthless thing to do. Children killed themselves because of that. Children are going to be illiterate. Irreparable harm was done. You see the things like, covering up the rape in Loudoun. You see things like in Florida where they want to groom your kids at the age of, kindergarten into being, transsexual or whatever. This is almost another thing is and this is important coming back to the migratory patterns that we're seeing with coronavirus. Democrats love urbanizing areas. If they can build dense buildings, that is how their real way of taking over an area. You want to have more. If you have more than an acre, you're going to be conservative. If you have less than an acre, you're probably going to be liberal.
Wasn't that a big thing that they wanted to urbanize the suburbs?
Absolutely, they want to get rid of, and Joe Biden, this was part of his platform, to ban single-family zoning. And so they think we should all live in cities and take trains or buses everywhere. And that is an anti-child policy too, because as anyone who has children knows, you're not going to go to the store and lug home 4 gallons of milk and, Costco size, whatever, all the stuff that we all do as parents. It's impossible to do in this urban lifestyle. And Democrats are obsessed. They want you to live in a high rise. They don't want you to have land. It is really there's a number of ways that the Democrats are anti-family beyond abortion.
I think when you get out of cities and actually experience having land and space, you never want to go back.
Dude, the cities were another reality before the internet in the 90s, late 90s, to early 2000s. It was the only way to go to get involved with anything bigger than Farmtown, USA. So I went to New York City in 2001. I want to be an actor. Now you don't need any of that. Cities
Online is the city. That's where everyone gets together.
The power goes out. Your immediate community is key. If the power went out, then maybe we'd start to form. I think maybe cities was like a stepping stone of our evolution towards, but that's if the power stays on. If the electricity goes out, then it's hard to communicate.
I'm waiting for
long
Starlink,
distances.
man. We're getting solar upgrades. We're waiting on Starlink. So once we have Starlink, it's like you got. I hear it's not that good. Initial test runs were 100 megabits or something, but now I'm hearing that once everyone starts using it, it drops down to maybe like 10 or so. But it's like lower latency, which means you can game and do stuff. This means people could be working out of Montana,
dude.
So it really allows people to kind of spread out. And I think one of the biggest problems is population density in cities. It makes people go insane. No freedom.
Dude, you can work on a boat with Starlink. You could live on a boat in the ocean.
I wonder if that explains some of the irrational behavior, the high-strung nature of some of these, hyper-online leftist journalists and things like that. Just the mental stress of living in a city.
Oh, dude. I mean, when I worked at Fusion, my apartment in Brooklyn was $2,000 per month, and they called it a 2-bedroom because the living room and the kitchen were one room, and then the living room was a bedroom. So it was a 2-bedroom. It was a 1-bedroom, but that's how they do it. I knew a bunch of journalists who lived in railroad apartments. You ever see a railroad apartment in New York City? A railroad apartment is one long room with doors every third of the way. So you have a bedroom with a door in the front and the back, and your roommates walk through your room to get to their room.
Oh, wow.
It is miserable.
It is a bizarre dynamic where they're all lecturing or looking down on everyone in the middle of the country. And the people in the middle of the country are just laughing at them like, dude, I'm sitting on my deck looking at mountains, looking at I had some urbanist lecturing me, and I was like, I'm looking out my window, and I see a fox taking a nap in my apple orchard, which was true. I have 40 fruit trees, and a fox was taking a nap. And their only retort was, "You're lying."
Wow.
So they can't comprehend that people actually do live this way, and it doesn't necessarily require more money or anything. It's just our way of living is better than theirs.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.